Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for clicking on this video. Today we are taking a look at Lydia Ko's golf swing. Lydia Ko, one of the best LPGA players on the planet, one of the best young players, and has an absolutely incredible golf swing. We're going to be taking a look at it with driver from down the line, front on, and 3-wood down the line, and iron as well. So let's dive straight in and take a look at Lydia's swing. So here we have Lydia set up with the driver. First of all, setup position, always great to take a look at people's setup positions. Probably something most amateurs, most of us don't really look at the pros and look at their setups, because that is one of the biggest differences really between professionals and amateur golfers, is the setup position. And there's no real excuse for getting it wrong either, because you don't even have to be moving to do it. So Lydia Ko here set up a driver, really good setup position. I love how that is the perfect amount, in my opinion, that is the perfect amount of knee bend to have. Just a slight amount of knee bend, because she'll be keeping her legs, her glutes, everything like that engaged. Posture is perfect, by the way, absolutely perfect posture. One slight thing, it looks like her hips are sitting a little bit possibly behind her ankles. In the setup, you want to get your hips over your ankles. It's a little bit hard to tell from this angle, but something we might come back to when we look at some of the other future swings. So let's take the club back. As Lydia takes the club back, she's going to keep this club beautifully wide. Love the takeaway. As we pause it here, kind of parallel to the ground here. Beautiful takeaway. Absolutely love that. There's a lot of things we can learn from and copy from Lydia Ko's golf swing. It's an absolutely incredible golf swing. Pretty simple, very athletic, beautiful club playing, everything like that. Absolutely love it. Here you can see the club face matching her spine angle perfectly. She's turned her chest, shoulders, and hips out the way. There's a few things I want to talk about with Lydia's lower body going on that I will mention in a second. As we take the club to the top, keeps it nice and wide. Love how she starts to lay the club off a little bit. And if we pause it here at the top, again, just a beautiful position. Huge hip turn, huge shoulder turn, and that left wrist perfectly matching the club face. Also, if you look at her right arm, it's quite wide. She keeps the club very wide and away from her, which is something I love to see. If you have watched any of my recent videos of what I'm personally working on in my golf swing, it has a lot to do with the lower body and how to kind of correctly load the hips in the golf swing. And one of the things I'm personally working on, which I'm going to get to why I'm mentioning this with Lydia's swing, is to keep my knees more facing towards the ball at the top of the backswing. And this is because instead of turning, this gets you pivoting and coiling up really a lot better and loading into your hips, and then that gets you in a better position in the downswing. But here, it's interesting to see that Lydia has kind of turned instead of pivoted and let those knees move quite a lot. You can see if you look at her knees, they are kind of, that right knee is not really pointed in front of her back at the golf ball. It's more pointed towards the camera, towards us. And that is how she gets such a huge hip and shoulder turn. But I would probably like to see those knees pointed more towards the ball, especially for my own swing. And there's a few reasons as we start to take the club down that I'll talk to you about that could possibly be slightly improved in her swing from doing that a little bit better. As we start to slowly play this swing down, this is something you can really learn from and pick up from Lydia's swing, and that's something I love about her swing. As we play this club down, watch the club shaft start to shallow. It is going to drop in behind her and beautifully shallow. It's just perfect. And then she can rotate through let's pause this parallel to the ground. So she's shallowed the golf club and now she's starting to rotate, and we can see that right elbow beautifully tucked in. It looks like maybe the right elbow gets a tiny bit deep in behind her, just a little bit. Also, if you note, her right heel has come up off of the ground a little bit, and the right knee and right hip have moved slightly more in towards the ball, and that is a direct relation to what I was talking about earlier from turning the hips instead of pivoting them. I think if she pivoted them, and this is again something I'm trying to work on, if she pivoted them a little bit better in the backswing, she could probably get the left hip and the left shoulder to clear a little bit better. But I mean, still nitpicking here is a beautiful, beautiful golf swing. One of the best players in the world. As we slowly take this onto the ball, rotating through, pause it impact, or pause it kind of, well, just the impact. And it is a great impact position. She's rotated, but there's a few things to kind of mention here. She has early extended just a little bit, not much, just a little bit, as a relation to that right hip, right knee coming up off the ground early, because she hasn't pivoted quite so well in the backswing, which causes her to change her spine angle. Here we can see her spine angle is much more upright than it was, and she actually has a bit of curvature in the spine, which I don't really like to see, because that indicates it's putting pressure through certain areas of the spine, which really we want to be keeping good posture throughout the golf swing. As we slowly play this through, she doesn't really release the club over too much. She holds on to that club face, keeps the hands and arms in front of her, and turns through to a beautiful balanced finish. Now let's take a look at the same driver swing, but from a front on angle. Let's take a look here. It's exactly the same swing. So here, if we start at setup, a few interesting things to mention here. It actually looks like Lydia's weight is quite loaded onto her left side. Typically with driver setup, you would have more like 55 to 60% of your weight onto your right side, your back foot. Which is going to help you load into that right side and then transfer the weight through the ball. Interesting that she starts out definitely with more weight, it looks like, on that left side. But other than that, really good setup, love that. As we start to slowly take the club back, beautiful wide takeaway. If we pause it parallel to the ground, I love how wide she keeps the club here, absolutely love that, copy that any day of the week. She's also taking the club away with her pivot, with her turn, with her chest, hips and shoulders. The arms haven't really done anything to this point, which is another thing most of us could improve upon. As we take this club to the top, big turn, keeps it nicely in front of her. As we pause it at the top, that is a huge shoulder turn. So let's talk about this position quickly. What I mentioned before with the knees, you can kind of see a little bit more from this angle as well. And there are certain players who do this differently. She has let that left knee come in a little bit, and in order to get that bigger hip turn, which is also why her shoulders are turned so much, because it's actually her hips that have such a huge turn. So like her shoulders here are probably in a similar position to someone like Rory McIlroy in terms of turn. But it's actually really her hips and lower body that have really allowed her to do that. A few other things to mention. It looks like she kind of still doesn't have too much weight into the right side. Certainly someone like Rory McIlroy would have a lot more weight and pressure going through that right heel at this point in the swing. If we slowly play this down, we're going to notice club shallows. She starts to turn out the way. She kind of keeps her weight and pressure pretty central. As we slowly pause this at impact, it's important to note in terms of her weight and pressure in the golf swing, she's not really loading into the right side then transferring the weight back to the left. She's actually kind of keeping herself more centered, and it's good and bad. It's good because you have less moving parts, you're not shifting so much laterally, which is definitely a good thing. But if she's not really loading into the right side, not really moving back to the left a little bit, and I'm not talking so much lateral movement, but more pressure, weight through the feet, then she's definitely going to be missing out on a little bit of distance there, and But other than that, it is still a very good golf swing, so don't get me wrong. I love her spine angle here at impact. Great position here as we slowly play it through. Beautiful extension of the arms. If we pause it here, when that club's kind of parallel to the ground, look how extended the arms are through to the target. Absolutely love that position as she comes through to that finish all the way then on the left side, but comes through to the left side after she's hit the ball really. So now let's take a look 3-wood down the line, then we're going to have a look at a more recent iron swing of hers. By the way, guys, if you feel I'm missing out any pieces of information about Lydia's swing, comment them down below. Let me know what you guys think of her swing. I would love to know. I'll reply to all of your comments, so comment down below. Also remember to give this video a like and subscribe to my channel. So now we have Lydia set up with 3-wood, and set up pretty similar. Not going to touch on that too much. Definitely looks like her hips still a little bit sitting too far back, just a little bit. Maybe like to see her weight a little bit more over her toes and chest a little bit more over the ball, but really good setup. Perfect as she takes the club away. Beautiful wide takeaway. Again, if we pause it here, parallel to the ground. Perfect position, absolutely perfect. We've mentioned that. But look at the lower body here. We can actually already see those knees starting to kind of turn to the right a little bit. So definitely something I would kind of not maybe recommend so much. I did a recent video on Tiger Woods golf swings with every single club, wedges, irons, 3-wood driver. I would recommend looking at that and looking at how Tiger's knees and hips load in the golf swing. It's something I would maybe more recommend positions in terms of the lower body I would try and get into, but I love a lot about Lydia's swing. As she takes it to the top, I love how laid off she gets that club. That is just a beautiful plane. It also looks like maybe her left-hand grip is just a little bit strong here, because that club face is definitely maybe a degree or two closed compared to that left-hand grip. Not surprising, it's something a lot more players are doing, getting a slightly more closed grip. Even if it's just a degree or two, allows them to rotate harder onto the ball, stabilize the club face with their rotation of their body. As she starts to swing the club down, I love how wide she keeps this, shallowing out the club behind her. Definitely looks like that right elbow gets maybe a tiny bit trapped in behind her. If we pause it, parallel to the ground, beautiful position here. We can kind of see a little bit of curvature in the spine. What I mentioned, that right heel again coming up off the ground pretty early, and that right knee and hip slightly moving into the ball. If we play it through to impact and pause it at impact, definitely a good position. I think if she loaded those hips a bit better in the backswing, she would be able to clear that left side a little bit better and not early extend quite so much. I mean, she doesn't have a lot of early extension. It is quite minimal, but you can definitely tell she does have some by the right knee, right hip moving into the ball, and the left hip hasn't really moved back and cleared, doesn't have a huge amount of rotation, and she has that curvature in the spine. As she comes through, beautifully extending the arms towards the target. Love that, and a beautiful finish position. Now let's take a look at Lydia with iron, and this is a more recent golf swing from, well, more recently than the others. So let's take a look at this. Lydia here set up. Posture is actually a little bit more upright, a little bit, almost slightly better posture, not quite so rounded. Little bit more knee bend, interestingly here. Probably prefer how she had a little bit less knee bend with the woods we just took a look at. Hips definitely look like they're just a tiny bit too far back still. Looks like her weight is quite on her heels. But other than that, really good setup. Alignment is perfect. Feet, knees, hips, shoulders, arms, everything beautifully in alignment. As we take this club back, again, we're going to notice huge wide takeaway. That is just, if we pause it parallel to the ground, I love how wide she keeps that club. She's really turned more with the chest and hips. Also, it looks like to me in this swing, Lydia is going to be actually loading her pelvis, loading her hips a little bit better than she did with the woods. If we play it to the top and pause it at the top, just absolutely love that position. Look at her lower body here. Look at her knees, look at her hips. Those knees have not moved as much, have not turned as much to the right, and she's actually loading a lot better into the ground. She's not turning so much, she's actually pivoting more through the ground, through her hips and through her spine, which is really good to see. So this is actually something it looks like she's actually working on, because again, this is a more recent swing. Beautiful arm structure at the top. Absolutely love the left arm is perfectly straight with the club shaft. Absolutely love all of that. The right arm, I love how she doesn't get the right arm too bent, too tucked in. The right elbow stays nice and wide, more like at a 90-degree angle. As she slowly plays this down, she shallows the club so beautifully as we come down. And if we pause it just after impact, it looks to me like she's getting more weight and pressure from this position through her left side, through her left foot. It also looks like, because she loaded the pelvis and the hips slightly better in the backswing, that she's been able to clear that left hip and left shoulder a little bit more. Maybe this is something she's working on, I don't know. But it definitely looks a lot better to me with this more recent swing. As she comes through, beautifully releasing and extending the arms, and a beautiful balanced finish. So if we have a look at all of those swings, let's just have a look again at that initial driver swing. And just notice, if we pause it at the top, just notice how that right knee really is almost facing back at us, back at the camera. And then if we slow this down, she's going to really kind of have to early extend a little bit. She can't really clear that left side too much and come through to the finish. Now if we have a look again at that iron swing, if we have a look and play it slowly to the top, really turning, pivoting more with the pelvis here. And if we pause it at the top, that right knee is not pointing back at the camera so much. She's definitely pivoted more through the lower body, which is really good to see. Absolutely love it. And definitely getting her hips in a much better position, not so flat. The hips have more tilt in them here, so that she's pivoted more. She hasn't just turned flat to the right. So, and then as we play this through, she gets more weight and pressure on the left side of her, and that left hip is able to clear a little bit earlier as she then extends the arms coming through to that finish. So guys, that is Lydia Ko's golf swing. Let me know what you guys think of that. Some really interesting things there. I have to admit, I hadn't before today, I'd seen Lydia swing a few times, but I hadn't really taken a good in-depth look at it. It was really interesting to see some similarities maybe in between some of the lower body movements, I guess, between kind of her and myself. Not that I'm comparing myself to her, because she gets in way better positions than I do, but just interesting to see that it looks like she's kind of working on some similar things, which I guess gives me a little bit of faith that hopefully I'm working on some good things in my swing. And I'm definitely working with a really good golf coach as well. If you want to see some of the previous videos where I talk you guys through exactly what I'm working on in my swing, check them out on my channel. Highly recommend looking at them. I go into a lot more detail with it, so you can see exactly in my own swing what I am working on there. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Make sure to give it a like, comment your thoughts down below. I'll reply to all of your comments. I'd love to hear what you think of this video, what you think of Lydia's swing. If you think I've missed anything, comment down below. I will see you in the next one, guys. As always, grip it and rip it.